All right, starting the show today with an IRS whistleblower about Hunter Biden. Go whistleblower.
In November of 2022, the statute of limitations was set to expire for the 2014 and 2015 charges in D.C., which included the 2014 felonies for the attempt to evade or defeat tax and fraud or false statement regarding bereavement income earned by Hunter Biden in those years.
All right, folks, welcome to GAMcast for July the 20th. 2023. That is the IRS whistleblower about this morning, breaking huge news about Hunter Biden and his tax fraud. And there's a lot of things going on there. We're going to cover that today. It's going to, by the way, be majority of the show. We're also going to talk a little bit about cashless bail, what Tommy Tuberville is doing in the Senate, and a few other stories to get you up to speed. It's a slow news day other than this news, but otherwise it's a slow news day. So normally that would mean I would have a lot to talk about, but I've actually got a lot of other things to do. I've already had to be in court this morning, so I'm a little bit behind. So hopefully I can get it done in about 20 minutes. Every time I say that, it takes me at least 40, but we'll see. Hopefully we can get it done more quickly. So without further ado, actually I may have misspoke. No, I think it was this morning. It may have been yesterday. Doesn't matter. Anyway, that we've known about these IRS whistleblowers. We've got all these whistleblowers come out about the Bidens, and there's a lot to say about the whole Biden situation. But the gist is the allegation from the anti-Biden or rule of law crowd is that Hunter Biden was the bag man for the Biden family, specifically the big guy, President Biden. And as a result of that, Biden is crooked. In addition, how do we know that that's the case? Well, one of the things that we've uncovered, and I got to understand, folks, this has only really been uncovered since the Republicans took the House. So you have to understand, when the Democrats had the House, they didn't even touch this. They didn't investigate. Nobody did. And I don't know if we're going to get into it today. We shall see. But I want you to understand that a lot of this, well, in fact, you did. You just heard him reference 2014. So that would have been Trump. But the expiration happened under Trump. They talk about a tolling agreement. We'll get into that. But so in other words, I want you to understand that this happened during the Trump administration, and even the Trump administration didn't leak a lot of this stuff or didn't really pursue Hunter Biden that tough. Now, you know recently that it came out that he got basically a slap on the wrist and a sweetheart deal. No jail time, no back pay, no nothing. I mean, it's not even going to be a felony charge, so you can continue to have firearms and vote and other things. And so what the Republicans are trying to do is bring this information to the public. And one of the other big issues that's going on is not just that the president might be corrupt, but also that not only did they make all this money, and this is an important point that's being lost in all this, but they didn't even pay taxes on it. Okay, so imagine somebody brings you a windfall. You'd think, okay, well, and let's say it's an ill-gotten windfall. You shouldn't have it. Well, that's one thing. But then the other thing is, well, what if you don't pay taxes on the windfall? Totally different issue. And I'm going to let this whistleblower finish because he's going to make one point. And basically, that's the whole gist here. These people are going to testify to what I just laid out. They seem pretty credible, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through that because basically that's what the Republicans elicited from the witnesses is that, hey, yeah, we tried to do it, and this was not treated like another investigation. We weren't allowed to look into certain things. We weren't allowed to do this. We told the superiors up the chain, and what normally would have been jail time and exposing everybody else under the sun, including Joe Biden, was basically just swept under the rug. That's the gist, okay? And I don't want to go into it, but just that's what's going on. We're going to focus more on what the Democrats thought this was about. And before I get to the Democrats, and again, I like going to the left and their sources and just seeing what they're saying. And there's an important reason I do that because there's just not a both sides issue, folks. I wish it were. There are a few credible points you can make, and I'm going to let them make them, but there are very few here. Okay, so in a rational society, what you would have is the Democrats would be like, well, sorry, Joe, Hunter, you just got to let him go. Somebody's got to go onto the bus. It's either you or him. I suggested Tim. I mean, sorry, if you want to make it you, fine. But somebody's got to go because you can't do what they're going to try to do here. But again, they can when politics becomes a circus, when it's no longer about policies. Politics comes from what are the policies of the government we're going to have. That's hence the word politics. It's become a show. And if it's a show and the umpire, the press, is on your side, apparently you can get away with absolute idiocy. So that's why when I talk about these things and I just point out, some of them are just idiotic and you don't even need any history or constitutional or legal background to know. Some of them you need just a little, and when I give you that little touch, you realize how bad it is. Anyway, so he makes one point here that they make, and again, I'll explain it after he makes it, but it should be pretty obvious. And then we're going to go to the Democrats basically, and their defenses. And when we get through it, again, it's just going to be, it's a circus, is what it is. Anyway, here's the whistleblower continuing. He's going to.
Statute of limitations have been extended through a tolling agreement with Hunter Biden's defense counsel, and they were willing to extend it past November 2022. Weiss allowed those to expire.
All right, so here's what's going on here, saying they were investigating him for 2014 income he didn't report. All right, what happens is there's a statute of limitations. I believe it's 4 years. It actually may be 3 years for the IRS. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it is. That means in 17 or 18, it was going to quote unquote expire, which means, all right, and if it doesn't, then if it expires, then those charges go away. You can never charge them, right? Now, the government never misses that deadline, because it's an easy way there's two easy ways to handle it. One is what he talked about there, so-called tolling agreements. If I'm going to sue you and the statute of limitations is tomorrow, I've either got to get down to the courthouse today or tomorrow to beat it, or I can get you to enter into a so-called tolling agreement that says, hey, I hereby voluntarily extended another 2 years. Why would you do that? A lot of reasons. I don't want you to have to spend the money to file it because you're going to ask for the money. Number two, I don't want it to be a matter of public record. A lot of reasons you'd agree to a tolling. Like, oh, no, don't feel like you got to rush to judgment here. Go ahead, take your time. So what he said there very simply is the statute was about to expire. Hunter Biden had already agreed to one tolling agreement. It was going to expire again, and he was willing to toll it again. Makes perfect sense to me that Hunter Biden would be willing to do that. The government let it expire. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Again, and that was under Trump. These are the people that are working for Trump. Anyway, so again, it's pretty damning, but it is what it is. So that's the Republicans making this case. So the Democrats are out there, and here's one of their lines of attack. At some point during this hearing, Marjorie Taylor Greene brought up some very lewd photos of Hunter Biden on the laptop. Now, this has been one of the left's talking points from the very beginning of this laptop. Okay, the laptop, first it was Russian disinformation. In 51, I mean, the fact that I'm even saying this is just heartbreaking. But 51 former high-level, I'm talking head of the CIA, head of the Office of the General Counsel of the CIA and the FBI, et cetera, signed a letter saying this has all the signals of Russian disinformation. We now know that the FBI had already inspected the laptop and had already certified up the chain that it was genuine. I don't want to get into it. We all know what we know now about the laptop. Among the things that the laptop has is proof that Hunter Biden was connected to his father and they were getting all kinds of bribes all across the globe. That's what it shows. Okay, it's evidence of it. If it was anybody else under the sun, especially if it was a Republican, you'd be in jail for as far as your eye can see, and they'd capture all your assets for the back taxes. But for whatever reason, it's a Biden. It's no big deal. So one of the ways that they tried to do it was try to smear it as Russian disinformation. Believe it or not, and again, this is why I follow left-wing Twitter, because you want to know what the other side's thinking. Just it's interesting. It used to be. Now it's just complete nonsense. But one of the tactics all along is, why are they so obsessed with all the nudity on Hunter Biden's laptop? They're just obsessed with dick pics. I mean, you hear that almost every day. When it first came out, you still hear it today. All right? And I don't know why. They know nobody cares. Well, I mean, we do care. But that's not really the focus of the laptop. But apparently not only was Hunter dumb enough to leave a laptop at a repair store and not go pick it up, but he also was dumb enough to leave all this stuff on a laptop that was easily hackable and have all kinds of, his criminal dealings on it so they could be found out. But in addition, he apparently likes to film himself doing drugs and having sex. Look, you know what? I'm no moralizer. I leave that up to the preachers. But, the drugs are illegal. The filming of the stuff is not. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of that stuff on there. Now, we're going to get to what Marjorie Taylor Greene did in a minute, all right? But I want to start with the left because this is an important point. Here's Brian Crassenden, who I interact with a lot. He's on the left. He tries to pretend like he's kind of right down the middle, but as you see, he never ever seems to do anything other than, well, he'll throw a bone occasionally like, well, wait, Trump should get his day in court before you say he's guilty. Something like that is he thinks makes him moderate. We all know what he's doing. But anyway, he's on the left. He's very much left-wing, but here we go. We're the party of family values, they say. We don't want our children being exposed to sex and nudity, they claim. How dare parents buy rainbow clothes with the word pride on them? But here are Sorry, I should open it up earlier anyway. But here are several slightly censored images of Hunter Biden having sex in various positions that we unveiled on national TV at a congressional hearing and smack dab in the middle of the day. So, again, Marjorie Taylor Greene should not have shown, and again, it is a little redacted, but you can see a lot. I mean, frankly, I think she should have redacted it more, and frankly, I don't think she needed to make the point that she made in this manner. And frankly, because again, I believe in being fair, I don't think there's any question that part of what she's trying to convey here is not just that that this is a cover-up of the Bidens. It is Biden covering up for his son, and they're engaged in all these deals, and he's a pervert. I mean, it's obvious. I don't think she should have done it, but hey, there's nothing wrong with what she did here, right? But that's going to be their attack. So again, this isn't about family values or any of this other stuff. This is about Hunter Biden. But if you're a Democrat right now and you get your news from MSNBC and CNN, oh, by the way, didn't even cover it. It's not even on their show. They didn't cover it live, okay? And this is what you're going to hear from a lot of people. Oh, it's just disgusting Republicans. They're just going after Hunter. And they showed pictures of him doing drugs and having sex. What a disgusting party. And oh, by the way, they're the party of family values. They don't like children saying this. Now, again, I've already laid out why I think maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene should have been a little bit more discreet. That being said, folks, nobody is ever suggesting that children shouldn't be exposed to anything, right? I mean, obviously, it's out there, and, there's nothing wrong with doing something in Congress, which I'm going to get to. So here we go. Good. So if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, I almost went live on Instagram today, but it wanted a code. I couldn't figure out how to do it, so maybe we'll do it in the future. But anyway, or on the Twitter, you can see this. If not, you can hear it. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're going to hear the audio. For those of you watching, you can see it. You can see the picture right now. It is very graphic. Wouldn't have done this, but here's what she had to say, and here's how she did it. It's obvious what she's doing. Again, I've already told you my opinion. Here she goes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapley, you started an investigation into Hunter Biden, codenamed Sportsman, which opened in November of 2018. It was an offshoot of an investigation the IRS was conducting into a foreign-based amateur online pornography platform. This is evidence of Hunter Biden making sex. Excuse me, this is my time. Making pornography.
Should we be displaying this, Mr. Chairman, in the committee?
Did a lady's time's expired?
Okay, all right. Now, I think they have a little bit of a point there, which is, again, you could have made the point. The point she's making is, as it relates to taxes, he deducted don't hate the player. Hate the game. I mean, the cojones on this, guys. Anyway, so not only did they not pay the taxes, but to report the income, but they took deductions for hookers and a bunch of other things. Now, again, Marge is making that point, and she's also doing it in a lewd way. I agree that probably she shouldn't have done that, but anyway, she has every right to do it. And so let me back up and just tell you a little bit of things about tax, just so you understand how serious it is. There's two types of problems you can have with the IRS. First problem is you can get audited and you took more deductions than you were entitled to. You claimed things that were deductible that weren't. This is an example of that, whereas you claimed it was a $10,000 business expense, but instead it was really for a hooker. And they come in, they audit you. Believe it or not, folks, that is not something that is criminal. That is just, okay, nope, that's not a proper deduction. And, well, it can be criminal in certain circumstances, but not relevant here. And, that's not it. You owe us taxes on those $10,000, which is his rate is probably $3,500 plus fees, plus interest, blah, 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 blah. The second problem you can have, and Hunter did both. He only didn't report the income, but what income he did report, he tried to make sure it was very little. The second problem is you get money and you don't report it. Folks, don't ever do that. That is fraud. You do that, you're going to jail. First time offense nowadays for sure. In the old days, sometimes first offense you might get away. Not anymore. So there's two problems here. She's pointing out the second one there. And again, I've already said in a lewd way. All right, so here we go from another left-wing source. Marjorie Taylor Greene just violated FCC laws by broadcasting obscene and indecent content on a public broadcast, and the poster she created is being shared. Posting porn in any form without consent, blah, 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 blah. Okay, folks, this is false for at least two reasons. First and foremost, she didn't do it. Okay, it's on Fox or whatever it was that was doing it, okay? Number two, all right, she has absolute immunity as a member of Congress speaking on the floor. She can do whatever she wants. She can defame you. She can do everything she wants. All right. This is what I've been talking about. I took the 6 or 7 months off, whatever it was, and this was happening while I was out there. I was noticing, and then I just get a chance to convey it to you. The assaults on the Constitution used to be narrow. They've been widened a tremendous amount in the last 6 months, and this is yet another benefit for them. First, they get to try to deflect about Hunter. Number two, let me just get people understanding the why, and we're going to get to another big one today, by the way, as it relates to that. But, oh, by the way, let me subtly get people used to the idea that, oh, I don't care if you're in Congress. Why? There's only certain things you can say when you're trying to debate the government or the federal, the federal government, how we should have policy. Oh, no, you think it's freedom? You think you get freedom of speech? You get to say whatever you want and you get to debate things fulsomely? Oh, no. You got to do it within these certain bounds that, oh, by the way, we've decided you can do. Anyway, it's just complete garbage. And again, it's twofold. This person, whoever it was, Douglas Santos, I don't even know who he is. He only has 169. I'm not trying to pick on people who have a lot of followers, but he's not a big name person. And what I mean, he's not a big influencer. Anyway, same thing here. This is this guy named Prez or whatever, another left-wing influencer. You can tell, as you can see here, by the rainbow flag and the Ukrainian flag. MTG is looking at a massive lawsuit after showing nude photos of Hunter Biden and linking them to sex trafficking. Hunter is not on trial and is never just a single individual to slander or defame. But same point. Sorry, folks, that's not defamation. It isn't. Now, it wouldn't shock me. It would have shocked me even 5 years ago if somebody actually files a defamation suit, right? And actually the judge lets it go forward. I mean, we're probably not there yet. Probably another 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road that we're going to get there. But this has been the lawfare thing they've done, right? They went after Trump. They went after Alex Jones. They went after Alex Jones first, remember? Something he said on his broadcast, and it was defamation. And I think I broke it down on a podcast, and I showed you how it legally wasn't defamation, right? But they let it go forward, and then they let the one against Trump go forward. Here's what they're doing. They're just ignoring the law. The defamation has a very short statute of limitations. It's 1 year. That's the shortest statute of limitations you're going to get, and for a reason. And number two, it's a very strict. A lot of things you can have. Truth is a defense. For public figures, you have to heighten burden of things to do. And the Democrat judges are just ignoring the law, and it's becoming lawfare. I claim you defame me, you didn't. It doesn't matter. We're going to roll the dice and see what the jury says. And of course, if you're not a popular person, like say Alex Jones or Donald Trump against whatever that woman is that claimed that he raped her, blah 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 blah, you're going to go to jail, or not jail in that case, but you're going to pay money. But anyway, so that's just lawfare. That's all that is. And again, eventually they'll get there. But in a rational society, and if you understand the Constitution, you have absolute immunity for things down for. Now, if she goes outside and starts speaking, she still has some immunity. It's not quite as great. But that was the point I wanted to make there. So here's the Democrats on the during the hearing. You would think, again, the rational thing you have to do is you have to pick one or the other. And there's a few points you can make here, and they're going to make them. But I want to go through some of the points they made, and I want you to get a flavor for what was going on in this very hearing. This should be wall-to-wall coverage for the next 48 hours, and this should be Nixon Watergate style hearings. The whole country should be focused on it. We should be rooting this garbage out of our system, and instead, here's what the Democrat Party thinks this is about. This is Jared Moskowitz. I think he's a Florida Democrat. Take a listen.
The Bidens, the Biden family, Biden associates, right? Bidens, plural, the S, what does the apostrophe mean? But not Joe Biden. Didn't hear a lot about Joe Biden. Why? Because he didn't do anything. This has nothing to do with him. My colleagues talked about foreign countries, foreign entities, trying to make it all scary for the American people. Of course, President Trump got $5.4 million from the Chinese while he was president because they were leasing space in Trump Tower.
All right, two lines there. The first two lines of attack of all this is that Biden's, but not Joe Biden. You see this on the internet, on Twitter a lot. No evidence, right? And it's like, no, you don't seem to know what that means. Like, it's like from Princess Bride. You keep saying that. I don't think you know what that means. There's not no evidence. The fact that the Bidens, Hunter and the uncle and the buddies and the families, we've got LLCs getting millions of dollars, right? Why on earth are they getting it since they're not in any real business? Well, that's it's circumstantial evidence that they're getting it to suck up to Joe Biden. I'll admit it's circumstantial. I'll admit it's not conclusive, but it's evidence. When you say no evidence, you apparently mean evidence I don't like, right? All right, second point. Oh, and well, look, Trump made money while he was in the White House. Yeah, again, Mr. Moskowitz, this should be obvious to a child. I'm not saying that you get money, therefore you committed a crime. Again, the point is you got money, and I can't figure out why you got it. Does Hunter Biden own an ice cream franchise? Does he own an ice cream or some kind of company that otherwise would be paid? I mean, that would at least, kind of make the fraud a little more difficult to prove, right? But no, that's all he does. That's all the whole Biden family does is they're related to Joe, and all Joe's ever done has been in government, period. So again, Trump, yeah, he got paid. So what was he supposed to do? There's no law that says you own a bunch of businesses when you get elected president. You have to divest yourself and not make any money. And again, this has been brought up and debunked a cajillion times. Here's the issue, right? Well, it's not improper, but let's just say hypothetically for the sake of the argument, that when Trump became president, he said, and he could do this, right? Commander-in-Chief, I hereby order that all federal government employees stay at a Trump hotel if it's possible. Right? Okay, fine. If that happened, then, again, it's not illegal. It wouldn't be improper. It might not be greatest look in the world, and you could theoretically be impeached for it, whatever. We've looked at it and it didn't happen. What happened was, right, is if they had prior stayed on a Trump property, they continued to do that. And the left jumped up and down and said all this stuff about it. But again, it's been looked into. It's been debunked. But this passes for a rational argument on the left. I see it all the time. Well, they keep saying that Hunter made this money and Joe made this money. Well, what about the Trumps? What about Jared Kushner? Well, Jared Kushner was in business. He did a little bit of dabbling in the government, and he got money before and he got money after. I mean, there's nothing to see here. But again, there's 2 points here. One, they're not serious about it. Second point is, this is what passes for debate or thought on the left now. And I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, honestly, I wish they would come up and explain to me, honestly, why they don't believe there's a problem here. They can't is the reason, folks. Anyway, so here is, oh my God, this is the greatest. So Jamie the Rascal Raskin, and by the way, I'm sorry that he's sick. I really am. But this headdress thing he's doing, I don't get. But anyway, here's him. I'm going to let this go for a little while. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to let him go this for a little while because he just basically, he gets a little bit of time. And this is something I think the Congress, when the Republicans took over, should have been stricken, but they haven't. You should have to ask a question. You should not be able to give this speech. This is about 2 minutes. I'm not going to let it go, I don't think, of a quote-unquote question that's really a speech. And they could make house rules where you can't do this, but he basically hits on all the big points. Don't let me do it. As you're listening to his points, his retorts, okay? You'd think he would be concerned, by the way, because this isn't the legislative branch that's being accused. This is the executive branch. Even though he's a Democrat, he should really care about his own party. And again, setting that aside, legislative versus executive, right? Think about this. I wouldn't want somebody in my party that had done this, but again, they don't care.
So what happened? Well, the son of the sitting president of the United States lost his brother and then lost his way badly back in 2015. As too many families around the country know, drug addiction is a dark and powerful affliction. And like other addicts, Hunter Biden made foolish and criminal choices, including failing to pay his taxes and owning a firearm in violation of federal law. And he's now being held criminally accountable for it. His investigation began under the Trump administration.
All right, so there's the first one. All right, and he's going to do the second one. So the first one is, it's a drug addict, poor Hunter, yada, yada, yada. Nobody cares about that. I mean, literally nobody cares. But they throw that in. It's a stupid argument. And I'm going to tell you something. Somebody who's tried a lot of cases, and I tried a case on Monday and won. Folks, when you're in front of a fact finder, be it the judge or the jury, you better get to the point, and you better not lie to them because it ticks them off. Now, for whatever reason, it doesn't work in politics. People just want to hear lies. They want to be lied to. But when there's people literally they're forced to listen to you and make a decision, they want you to stop lying. So again, that would be a stupid lie. Second thing is it started under Trump. And again, they keep floating this idiocy up despite the fact that we've seen it time and time and time and time and time and time again. When there's a Republican administration, right, Trump can't do everything. So there's a bunch of people undermining what he's supposed to do. In a Democrat administration, that doesn't seem to happen. But to them, that makes a point. Okay, it started under Trump. We just had testimony earlier that in 2018, Trump was the president and they let the flipping statute expire when they could have either filed the case literally Took them about 5 minutes to do it, or they could have entered a tolling agreement. And Trump was the president. But to them, it still makes a point. I'll let him continue a little more.
It was conducted by a U.S. attorney for Delaware, David Weiss, who Donald Trump appointed to his office and who Attorney General Barr chose for this assignment to conduct this investigation. In his final press conference in December of 2020, Attorney General Barr expressed full confidence in Weiss's work, saying it was, quote, being handled responsibly and professionally within the department. And to this point,
Okay, you need a little bit of history here. It has been until the Democrats says they do. Pretty much every precedent that's ever been destroyed has been destroyed by them. I mean, pretty much. I mean, it's not complete all of them because Republicans have had to go through a few, but they were almost always initiated by Democrats. Barr was just doing the process that they do, and he followed the process, and it got too close to the election. So he said, hey, I have no reason to believe this guy isn't doing a job. He's still working it. We now have evidence. And again, notice how he just went right through and glossed over the fact that the guy let the statute expire. You think old Billy Barr knew that was happening, or if he did, he would have said what he said? I don't know. But they were just following the typical procedure of the time, right? And there was no reason for them to think anything else. But we now know it didn't work out that way, all right? In other words, the guy was not doing what he was supposed to do, and the reason he was is probably he was intimidated, which makes another point that Raskin thinks, oh, well, it was by a Republican, and Republicans, they're just as corrupt as us. No, Jamie, they're not. They actually follow the rules, right? And then once Trump is no longer the president, right, why would you want to tick off the guy who might be the next president? And then when Biden comes in, well, I think he's going to make this point. Let's see if he does.
No reason to appoint a special counsel, and I have no plan to do so before I leave. Furthermore, Joe Biden never publicly questioned or challenged this prosecution. When it began...
Okay, here's another one. Biden, he never attacked the process because he had every faith nothing was going to happen. That's why he didn't attack it.
Not decry it as a witch hunt by Donald Trump. He placed his trust in the fairness of the American justice system.
As well he should, because it worked out exactly like he thought it was. Do you think it's a coincidence, folks? Do you think if you had millions upon millions of dollars, you didn't pay taxes and you'd taken nefarious deductions and you had all, you think for 1 second you'd be a free person? I mean, this is just, it's laughable. It is laughable that Raskin would not just think this, but say it out loud and even try to get away with it. It's a joke. And then he says, well, Biden didn't fire the guy. I think he said it, or he's going to say it. Biden didn't fire the guy. Well, okay. Well, A, it looked like based on what they knew. For example, folks, just break this down. Do you think Hunter Biden might have said, here's another problem. If I were the president and I had any inkling at all or cared at all about my credibility, I'd be like, Hunter, look, I love you, man, but you got to be behind. When you see me, it can't be so that the cameras can see it, et cetera, because then they're going to know that we talk, and I tell everybody anything about your business. But he not only pulls this stuff off right in front of your face, I mean, this is just in your face. He has him around all the time. So he's having conversations with them. They can't even credibly say, I haven't seen my own mother in like a year and a half. So if somebody said, well, I could credibly say, well, I don't really know. I mean, I talked to her on the phone here and there, but I don't know exactly what's going on there. But if I were at her house every week, right, how could I credibly say I didn't know the roof had collapsed. I didn't know she'd had a new roof. I had no idea. I mean, but they do that crap all the time. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, a little bit more of Raskin, then we're going to go on to a couple more people, move over to a couple more things.
Became president, not only did he not use his power to halt the investigation, he kept in place Trump's handpicked U.S. attorney, Mr. Weiss, overseeing it.
All right, I got to move on. He makes a few other points. They're all just stupid. This is what Scott Adams, and I agree with his point here. It's called laundry list persuasion. You make a lot of points that you can debunk each one of them. But when somebody reads them off and it's 12 of them real quickly, it sounds, well, there's a lot of things there, right? But because you don't take time to debunk each and every one of them. So understand this. He didn't use his power to stop it, which he could have. Imagine if a Republican did that, fired the person. Number two, he didn't. Well, and this is the point I was about to make a minute ago, and I forgot about it. But here's the point I was trying to make. He sees Hunter all the time. Do you think Hunter said, hey, Pop, you know what? They let the statute expire on 2014. I mean, we were willing to toll it, and they just let it go. Didn't even take us up on the tolling agreement. You think Joe heard that? You think maybe when he took office, he said, oh, yeah, these guys are cool. They're not going to mess with me. I'm going to leave them there, right? I mean, give me a break, Jamie Raskin. And then let's just say, for the sake of the argument, since he's a Democrat, he could do it. He fired the guy. If it was a Republican, of course, it would have been a big scandal. Y'all would have covered for it. No big deal. But it would have drawn attention to it, but he didn't need to. And you know what? He was right. Because ultimately, they gave him a sweetheart deal, no criminal charge, no jail time, and no felony. So, I guess Joe was right to do them. Here's one of the dumbest ones at all. Daniel Goldman, I think he's the heir to the Levi fortune or he's worth like $150 million or something. Why on earth he would ever want to go become a prosecuting attorney in the federal office, you would never know. I mean, if I had that kind of money, trust me, this is not the kind of thing I'd be wanting to do. But I guess now you see why he did it. So I guess he works up the ways. And if you can, prosecute your enemies and try to really change the world as much as the federal government can now do with Democrat power. But he's like a Jamie Raskin light. I've said this before. This is what the Democrat Party attracts nowadays, okay? And it really should be discouraging these types of people, but it's encouraging them. So Daniel Goldman is a very talented, bright guy, comes in, and his job is to just spew nonsense into the atmosphere and make it sound good. So here he is actually questioning the whistleblower in a more of a trial lawyer. What you saw from Raskin was a speech question, but here's a little bit more of a pointed questions to people with answers. And take a listen to this nonsense. Oh, come on, don't do that to me. This is from his Twitter feed. All right, it's stubborn. Let me see if I can really quick. 137 was where we were. 137. Boom, boom, boom. All right, here we go.
Response to that?
137.
In your
137.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I would say that.
All right, it might take on the WhatsApp that we went through.
Okay, now this question is going to be about the WhatsApp. Now, you remember the WhatsApp thing broke about 2 weeks ago. I wasn't broadcasting at the time, but you'll remember that when that was, I'm sitting here with my dad, and if we don't have if our agreement isn't honored, I will promise you that everyone that knows you remember the WhatsApp, where he basically sat there and they discovered it, where he texted people in China and said that, well, in fact, let me see if I can do it. I shouldn't do this, but let's see. WhatsApp Hunter. See if it just pops up here. Probably. More explosive with a release. Okay, let's WhatsApp fuels GOP. I'm going to try one click and see if I can get it. And it is sitting here with my father. Here we go, right here. I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled, Hunter Biden allegedly wrote. It's his WhatsApp, for crying out loud. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, this is the Chinese person he's speaking to, if I get a call or text from anyone involved other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, that's Joe, and every other person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Now, again, you'll recall from the testimony when this broke that approximately a couple weeks later, $6 million or somewhere thereabout was wired into one of these LLC accounts. Okay, that's the WhatsApp we're talking about. Now, here we go back to Goldman again. Let's see what his big reveal is going to be about the WhatsApp. Take a listen.
And Mr. Shapley, in your testimony, your opening statement, you said that the text message, the WhatsApp message that we've been talking about, shows Hunter Biden discussing business with his father. Could you show me where in the text message it says anything about discussing business with Joe Biden?
So if you'd like me to go through it, I mean, I can take time to review it if you'd like me to.
Well, I don't have the time, unfortunately, as you point out. I will tell you the only thing it says about it is that Hunter Biden was sitting with his father. It does not say anything about discussing any business.
Folks, if I were trying this case, and I've been there before many times, and your client is on your right and you can just feel him or her there, sometimes they'll even whisper in your ear, which I don't like. And I try to tell them not to do that because jurors don't like it. It makes it sound like we're keeping secrets. Anyway, you can, that's not true. Man, stupid. You can do, and you're sitting there and you're like, shh, they're helping us. Just let them do it. And you're sitting there and you're just, when he starts down, he brings up the WhatsApp. You're just sitting there going, oh my God, praise Jesus. He's not going to do it. He's not going to bring it up. I will have to bring that up. And then I'm going to look less. He's going to do it for me. And people are just this stupid. Now, again, he's a bright guy. I'm not trying to say he's not. He's got a lot of skills. He reminds me of a lot of these lawyers that he can get up, he can make an opening, he can write it, but he just doesn't see the chess game the way he should. That is idiotic. What I just read to you, I'm sitting here with my father, and Z, the commitment you made. No, he doesn't say in there, Z, the commitment you made to send me $6 million to bribe my father. because he's not an absolute imbecile. He's just a small imbecile. But when you do that, you lose all credibility. I would be literally, I would be sitting there so joyous that I would be telling myself on my little voice, like, stay calm, don't change your expression. But I would secretly be jumping for joy. That would almost literally, that might even finish the trial with. That might be the last thing I say to the jury. Seriously, it is that bad and it is that stupid. That with the evidence I have, and this is what they've got, are you kidding me? If you have any credibility at all, you just don't bring it up. You just move on. But to him, and again, folks, before I leave that point, I see this a lot. I saw it a lot when I started out in corporate America, because you see a lot of people there that they're very, very smart. And so their brain, one of the things about intelligence is, and it's very good, very useful thing in the law, if you can take something, right, and break it down to 10 parts, or you can break it down to 100. That's great, because that's all the things you can think of and different ways to do it and solve it and problems that might come up so you can prepare for them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some of us can break it down to 10,000. Now, it can be frustrating, because then you sometimes, if you don't learn how to navigate that, you can get yourself all wound up and never get out of a problem, right? But Goldman's one of these people, he can only break it down to like 10. So in his mind, he goes, I'm proving they don't have any direct proof that they said I'm doing this and I'm going to give it to my dad. Well, yeah, dumbass, but that's not the point. I mean, of course they weren't quite that dumb, but sure, again, and this is the mindset of people who don't know how to break things down as much as they should be able to, or right, and do it. And number two, this is what I talk about all the time. He never talks to anybody. If he were in a bar with me, because he never hangs out with anybody who disagrees with him. And this has always been a problem for the left, and it's a worse problem than it's ever been, because it's a different type of leftist. But if he ever heard, and I said, come on, Dan, really, dude? Come on. I mean, and you go like, oh, well, yeah, maybe you have a point there. Maybe I wouldn't mention it. I'd just move on if I were you. Right? But he never talks to anybody. So we got to move on. So it looks like, yeah, that's the end. I think that's the end of the Hunter stuff. Anyway, so that really is the biggest story of the day. That's the news of the day. And I'm already 36 minutes in, and I can't believe I think I can ever do this thing in 40 minutes and under. And I'm glad I don't have the 40-minute rule anymore, because it was adding stress to try to stay within the under the 40 minutes. Anyway, so probably can do it in about 50, or probably about 12 more minutes of material, but maybe not. We'll see. Hopefully we can do it better. So another story that's going on out there is Jack Smith. Now, yesterday, and by the way, thanks, y'all. And if you're on the Rumbles, please hit the Rumbles and the likes. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. But yesterday's broadcast was by far the most it's ever been listened to. Not even close. Now, most of that reason is it was about the Trump indictment, and it walks you through how January 6th Trump did not commit a crime by challenging Biden's certification. So anyway, but I wanted to come back to that, because part of the whole Smith special counsel aura, right, that the Democrats are trying to create, I talked about that in that broadcast, but one of they're trying to create this is he's a special counsel. So because it's a special counsel, well, he's not working for Biden. He's working for Biden. Everybody knows what he's supposed to be doing. But I want you to understand how bad the propaganda is out there, okay? Jack Smith, he's obviously a Democrat. Biden and Garland knew who they were going to get. I say this all the time, but look, if you tell me go figure out and get a panel that's going to determine objectively, because you can't do it, who's the greatest football franchise of all time, it's going to be the Cowboys, because I know who to pick, and they're going to say Cowboys, right? I'm not going to pick any people that are going to say the Steelers, for example, right? Even though a credible argument could be made for that, or the San Francisco 49ers, or the Patriots, whatever. The point is, I know that. So Smith would not have been picked unless he were a Democrat and were going to be favorably disposed to their opinion. Now, that is something that we all understand and is baked into the cake. But the left constantly attacks that idea. Now, if it's a Republican, they don't. Then it's obviously, well, he's a Republican, and so but it's this game we play. But I want you to understand, and I've been saying this, how over the top they are about this. Right? It'd be one thing to just kind of float it out there, but no. They're over the top. So this is a group called Republican Accountability. It's one of these Twitter left-wing influencer sites. They've got 425,000 followers. And this is, I want you to listen to the headline, and I'm going to let the guy say what he says. Anyway, so here's the headline or the tweet. Former Trump DOJ lawyer Richard Donahue defends Jack Smith's investigations. Now, I'm going to let him play it, but I want you to understand, if you don't have your history, right, this is where you need history for this, you would read that and assume this is A, Republican, and B, right, a Trump Republican. And why, if a Trump Republican is saying that Smith's not political and he's not left-wing, right? Why, that must be true. Now, if you have some history, and I do, because as I told you, I covered the January 6th hearings. I covered all of them on YouTube. You can still go get them now if you want. I know they're on Rumble as well. And you can get those. Donahue was a big witness against Trump about the lead up to the election, after the election, and the whole bit. It is clear he is at best a RINO, but he is certainly anti-Trump. Now, you just, again, and there was never really a question of that. He went to the committee. The way he testified, he despises Donald Trump. Now, that's fine. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. And maybe he genuinely thought what Trump did was wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But notice how he's a Trump lawyer. But anyway, take a listen to what he says. And again, easily debunkable, but you have to know a few facts and some history. But take a listen.
Rich Donahue, you worked in the Trump administration. You also know Jack Smith. It sounds like Leader McCarthy is basically saying Jack Smith is corrupt and has been politically corrupted. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think nothing could be further from the truth.
Okay, and again, not to mention they've misled us about who Donahue is. Before, let me tell you just a couple things about Jack Smith. Jack Smith has a long history. He's mainly prosecuted Republicans. Has he thrown a Democrat in there in the woodpile? Sure he has. But only the corrupt of the corrupt of corrupt, or as a false flag to just throw somebody in there to just say, I can credibly say I've been bipartisan, but he hasn't. The most famous case he did was he went after the Virginia governor who was a rising star and just destroyed his career, got overruled 9-0. 9-0 by the Supreme Court. Even the lefties said what he did was improper. He has a well-known reputation for going after people, especially people that believe in freedom and constitutionality. This is clear. His wife worked on a documentary for Michelle Obama. His donations have been to the Democrat Party. He's a Democrat. Again, so what? It doesn't mean that he's necessarily corrupt, but anyway. So knowing all that, let's listen to what Donahue says.
For some people, Donald Trump will always be a man who is targeted because he stands up to corrupt elites. And for others, he will always be Benedict Donald, a leader who puts his own interest above the country's. Those people will never be convinced either way. But what we have to
now, so again, this is a typical what these people do. I'm right down the middle, but if anybody says that is a falsehood from the beginning. That is not true. I'm one of those people that I usually support Trump not for what he said. I usually do it because he's being railroaded. If they stop railroading the guy, I'd be willing to point out some of the problems he has, but they won't. But so he does that and says, oh, some people, so let me just smear 50% of the people one way or the other. Then he's going to get to his point, which is what I wanted you to hear. Take a listen.
So are the people who have not made up their minds, and that's what the Justice Department will do, and that's what I think Jack Smith is doing. I don't think he is. Okay,
so the Justice Department, they're people, they're not partisan. They're not like you people that support Trump or bad Trump. These are good, decent people. They're just going to make. And by the way, where did you used to work, Mr. Donahue? Oh, yeah, you were in the Justice Department before you got into the Trump administration. But he continues.
He is not left-wing. He is not an agent of the deep state. His politics would put him right of center, I believe. And look, he secured the first capital sentence in New York in more than 50 years. He is not a bleeding heart liberal.
So you think it's
okay? There you go. Yeah, see, there you go. He's center right. That's what he is. I mean, just whatever. Okay, Tommy Tuberville. I hadn't covered this story. It's been going on for a while. Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville just blocked qualified national security nominees again. I'm going to move on because I'm at 43 minutes and I want to finish this up. And please, the I feel cheated crowd, don't hit me with this. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. Anyway, so the person gets up and says, "Oh, Tommy Tuberville, you're a terrible human being. You're making the military readiness terrible. Our country's nobody's ever done this. All lies, all not true." Here's what's going on: the Senate so a lot of nominees have to be confirmed by the Senate. For those nominees that need to be confirmed by the Senate, they can do something that's called unanimous consent. And again, unanimous consent. All right. That means instead of bringing up one person and voting, right, which you can do, right, or for that matter, you can bring them all up and vote, right? You can do that. As an alternative, you can say, well, we got like 200 people, 10 generals, a couple of 500 colonels, this person, that. All these people are up, all in favor of confirming their nominations, therefore, for general and colonel, etc. Say aye. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Nobody objects. Boom. All 200 are confirmed. What he's doing is he's saying, I'm not going to agree to unanimous consent. Senator Tuberville, if you won't agree to that, then we're either going to have to take them all from the vote, and that's a lot more complicated process because people can rise and they can want to speak, and blah, 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 blah. He goes, yeah, that's right. I'm not doing it. And he says he's not doing it until Biden stops paying for these abortions. And after Dobbs, when it became harder to get an abortion in certain states, the Biden administration said, oh, that's no problem. We'll pay for you to go to California, New York, wherever you want to go. And he objects to that process. And he says, look, and until Biden quits that process, I'm not going to agree to unanimous consent on the military. Now, he's agreed to unanimous consent on other things, but not the military. Okay, why the military? Well, because that's where you're doing the policy. I don't like it. That's what's going on here. Now, again, Schumer, if he really wanted to, could bring these people up individually, and all these people would have to work harder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He could do that, but he's not doing it. So that's what you need to know. 1, unanimous consent. 2, what Tuberville is trying to do. And I'm not taking a position on whether he's right or wrong for trying to do it. It's what he believes in. It's whether the system works. You don't like it, vote him out. Or I suppose you could try to impeach him. But anyway, this idea that they don't have a way around it is garbage. So let me tell you, and this is the most important point I'm making about this. These people sitting up going, the military readiness is there. If that were really the case, you know what you would do? You would either concede his point and stop doing this, or number 2, you would go through the other process and stay up round the clock to make sure we're doing okay. You know why you're not doing that? Because you're lying. And you know why else you're not doing it? Because you're raising money off of it, which is the dirty little secret half the time. I'm not an imbecile, right? But they expect the American people to be imbecilic or to be uninformed. Now you're informed. And I know you're not an imbecile if you listen to this show. The other point you could do, and I want you to understand how petty it is and how I know, not to 100%, but the 99.999 to infinity, that's what this is. Could Biden just go, oh, Senator Tuberville, yeah, we've reversed that policy forthwith. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I told him. And then he'd go unanimous consent and confirm the 200 people. And the next day, changed my mind, going back to it. But he hadn't done that either. It's all a game, folks. All right, Aaron Rupar, especially. Rupar's one of these guys. Again, one of these guys that's a Democrat influencer, lies constantly. He pretends to be a journalist or a historian or some kind of crap, but he's known for not just making a stupid point, like I pointed out some of them, but actually doctoring evidence to do it. Anyway, this tweet caught my eye this morning when I was doing my reading. I thought you'd bring it special. Take 2. I thought I'd share it with you. Anyway, so here's Aaron Rupar. He tweets the latest election poll from Fox News. And Fox News polls have been shown to be just garbage for a long time now. But anyway, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? Now, again, folks, the election is a long way away. See, we're sitting on 7 to the 4 to the 3.5 plus a year. So 15.5 months until we vote for president, all right? And a poll now is about as worthless. Well, anyway, it's worthless. It's also Fox, but whatever. 49 to 44. Now, if you go look, in fact, let's do it. I'm doing a little real-time stuff today. I don't normally do that, but here is the national polling. Let's see if I can see it. Biden, Trump, general election matchups. It's not going to do it. Go to here, Biden and Trump. The current Real Clear Politics average has Biden 0.4. Now, again, it's a long ways to go. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that's a better way to look at it if you're going to look at it. And again, just for those folks who like reality, that's why you tune into this show. You want the facts, and then you're going to get my opinion, of course. But I try to give you the information. If you don't like my opinion, you at least know where to go, or you're more informed. You can make your own. Here's the point about that too. By the way, if it's truly 0.4, Biden would lose. He needs to lose. He needs to win by a couple of points. And if you'll remember, last time he won by about 3 percentage points, and still only narrowly won, about 44,000 votes over 3 states. Anyway, what I wanted you to hear was Rupar. Not only does he like the poll, which is garbage, but here's what he really is trying to convey to you, especially given that these next 16 months or so are going to look like for Trump. All right, so we're interfering with the election and we got the crime. Okay, he, again, clueless. He has no idea that it could possibly backfire. Understand, it's not that he doesn't understand it might back. It never even enters his brain. That's why you're seeing Trump prosecuted all, because these people don't think there's ever going to be any pushback. And considering the strong economy and other good metrics for Biden, folks, I want you to understand the world we're living in. They do not live in reality. I've been saying that for a long time. The strong economy. What are you talking about? And let me give you one little hint, a little nugget for listening to this show that I've noticed. Real life, real world. So I, like a lot of people, order a lot of stuff from Amazon. Check this on your own. Not just me. I'm pretty sure they're not just doing it to me, okay? So used to be you order stuff from Amazon and they had a very, very liberal return policy. So they encouraged you, and they make money off this, right? They encourage you to get all kinds of crap. So I would get all kinds of crap. Sometimes I'd get things I didn't necessarily want just to try them, check them out, whatever. Sometimes I get two, just different sizes. Because it was so easy to return it. Okay. Well, over the last 3 or 4 months, I noticed right before I went to Ecuador, especially, but right before I went out of the country in June, I really noticed it. They're making it harder to return. Okay. So that means there's a squeeze and they're trying to make up some money. Number 2, they're not giving you your refund very quickly. And in some cases, you got to call them or text them to get it. I've noticed that quite a bit. Like I just kind of let it go and it wasn't that big of an item, 20, 25, 30 bucks. I don't think about it. Let me tell you something, folks. That tells you a lot. That means Amazon needs to make some money and they're making it off the float. Used to be you returned it on day 1. You got your refund day 1, day 2 at the max. Now, you return it on day 1, you're lucky if you get a refund by 30. Now, you may not think that's a big deal, but when you look at the number of orders they have, it is, for them, the float, right, or the earnings they make off holding that money is billions. B with the billions. Now, why are they doing that? Because the economy's bad, people ain't ordering enough stuff, and that's why they're also making it harder to return. So, folks, if you think this economy is good, you're an Aaron Rupar, and you're not very intelligent. But anyway, I'll move on. And there are also no other good metrics. Anyway, it's going to be tough for Trump to win re-election. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And then I think the last story of the day it is, all right, so let me close this window so I don't get confused. All right, last story of the day, eliminating cash bail puts Illinois firmly on the road to criminal justice reform. Now, you may not have heard about this, but this is a story, one of those stories that should be a big story. I'll tell you what's going on here. Illinois has eliminated cash bail. What does that mean? Well, typically, if you are charged with a crime other than basically a traffic offense, right, but a real crime, I mean, even if it's just disorderly conduct or, assault and battery, robbery, burglary, obviously arson, murder, those types of things, you go down, you are arraigned. At the time that you are arraigned, you must put up something to secure the fact that you will show back up. Because when you're arraigned, that's just when you plead guilty, not guilty. Now, presumably, if you plead guilty, well, then that's the end of that. And they sentence you on the spot. But if you plead not guilty, you got to come back for a bench or jury trial, depending on the seriousness of the charges. And to assure that you will come back, you got to put up some kind of bail. That's the system we exist on now. A lot of people, for whatever reason, the left thinks that system is unfair because a lot of people, no matter, they for whatever reason, they can't pay it and they end up staying in jail because they can't get bail, so they stay incarcerated. And that to them, well, that's unfair. Now, just so you understand, the system is not that rigged. But before I say that, I will say that there are areas where we could compromise, right? I do not like the fact, for example, that they tack on fees and things. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you get arrested for disorderly conduct. You come in and the judge says, I'm going to set your bail at $2,000. Judge, I don't have $2,000. Oh, we take credit cards. I don't have a credit card. And the one I have is maxed out. I don't have that on there. Okay, they will say, "Oh, okay, well, we'll let you pay it over time. We'll let you pay that $2,000. How about, can you afford $20 a week? Oh, yeah, I can afford that. Okay, well, we're going to put you on probation while you do that. All right, so you're on probation while you do that, and they'll tack on fees like $10. Well, all of a sudden, the $2,000 with the fees becomes like $3,000, and there was no need to do that. There's no need to do it at all. You just say, okay, pal, 1 week you miss it, I'm going to send the sheriff out and pick you back up again. And by the way, it's going to go from 2 to 10 or maybe 20. But anyway, so there's areas of reform we could do. But no. The left is no longer interested in bipartisanship. They've ruined that system where I'd like to get everything I want, but I'm going to get something in the middle. There's only one way with these people, their way or the highway. Anyway, so now they've decided that they just want to eliminate that system altogether. They don't like that system. Because for whatever reason, it has disparate impact. Now, those of us that are rational go, well, it has disparate impact because that group, for whatever reason, is creating more crimes. And you go, well, that's also they're poor. Well, that's already taken into account, just so you know. So I'm not a wealthy person, but I own a home, like a lot of you, I'm sure do, right? And I have cars and things. So if I went down there, right, they're going to factor in how much money I make per year in setting the bail. That's the whole point of it, right? So the person that did the disorderly conduct got the $2,000 was, 1, because it's a lesser offense, and 2, because they probably said, hey, I don't have a lot of money. So all we want to do is incentivize you to show up. So to them, $2,000 is a lot. For me, they probably set it at 25, 30, 40, because I don't want to lose 30, 40 grand over not showing up, so I'm going to show up, right? You can also put up your house and things of that nature. But anyway, so they don't like that. So I'm going to read a little bit of this article and see if they make a credible point for what they want. So the system they want, just so you understand, is no more of that. So basically except the most harsh offense, right, which is, say, murder or rape, if it's anything other than that, there will be no bail at all. There's no opportunity to get it. You can't get it. The person has to be arraigned, not guilty, out the door. Now, what that's going to do, obviously, is people are going to come in and they're not going to be out of there. All right. Eliminating cash bail puts Illinois firmly on the road to criminal justice reform. There will be passionate naysayers. Here's one right here. You just heard it. Ready to pounce if a suspect is released and then charged with another crime, of course, because recidivism is a big problem. But that would happen under a cash bail system. No, it wouldn't, because you would set it to a point where they would be incentivized to come back, and they would also be incentivized not to commit a crime, because then they would violate the bail and fast the money. So all at the bat, they're lying, but whatever. It will be an enormous undertaking to completely change a practice that has been integral to our country's deeply flawed criminal justice system, one that has disproportionately affected poor and brown communities. I'm sorry, poor black and brown communities. So right off the bat, they're already admitting, not very artful there, that this is the way we've always done it. But we got to change the way we've always done it. Okay, because it disproportionately affects black and brown communities. Well, maybe they shouldn't commit crimes, but whatever. All right. And again, there's no argument that I see, no statistical argument that that's even a true statement. But if it is, just because there's correlation doesn't mean there's causation. In other words, the bail system's not causing that. Anyway, but every step counts in chipping away at inequities that have been kept the wheels of justice from spinning evenly. The Illinois Supreme Court moved the needle in the right direction Tuesday in its 5-2 ruling eliminating cash bail, a move this editorial board has supported in the past, making our state the first in the nation poised to do so. Second point, they didn't even do it through the legislature. The Supreme Court of Illinois did it, right? You didn't get a legislative answer in that. Somewhere it's in that Constitution. I've warned you about this before, folks. While this stuff may seem entertaining and it may be fun and it may be frustrating, while you're focused on, I understand, I covered Hunter Biden. Not only can we not figure out and bring Hunter Biden to heel and root out corruption in our system, all right, not only that, but there's real governing going on while you're being distracted by that. And here's some of the real governing. The Illinois Supreme Court acted like a legislature and made a public policy decision, which they had no business doing. Setting that aside, they made a horrific decision. Anyway, when the law takes effect in September, the hope is it will balance the playing field without hurting public safety. The hope? The hope? You ought to be darn sure if you're going to change something we've done for thousands of years, right? You're going to hope it doesn't hurt public safety. But bottom line, it simply isn't fair for people charged with low-level and nonviolent crimes to bide their time in jail while they await trial solely because they don't have cash more privileged suspects can withdraw within minutes. I've already debunked that. They said it. In other words, if I come in and the state says, you know what, the great American male, we got to keep him, Judge. He won't show up and he's a danger, right? And they say, well, what would you suppose, right? Well, $1 million. Well, of course I can't post that. And I'd say, well, Judge, that's hardship. I don't have $1 million. Yeah, I have a house, but I got a mortgage. I got to, and then the judge, if they're doing their job, they should come in and go, okay, I'm going to set it at $50,000. I think that's going to be a little bit difficult, but he can raise it, right? Same thing for the poor person. They can come in and say, Judge, $2,000, I can't raise $50. And the judge can perfectly set it at $50. There's no reason they can't do that. Anyway, I'm going to go a little bit further. This is taking me a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. But anyway, trying to get my sea legs after about 7 months not doing this. As the Center for American Progress, very left-wing group, what they think is progress is if they could define reality, essentially. And that's the problem. Report from last year summed it up. Because of the excessive cash bail, hundreds of thousands of people are incarcerated each year, not due to any real public safety concern, but rather due to a lack of money. Okay? All right. Well, again, you're talking about changing this whole system because you think, well, you don't know. You don't have any evidence. In other words, if thousands of people were incarcerated, you say it's because they couldn't pay the bail. I disagree, but let's assume for the sake of argument it is. You don't know when we have a system where they just get let out again. How many of those people were repeat offenders? How many of those people were on the way to one crime? So say, for example, you're locked up for burglary, right? And you went in there. And you go in and you or robbery, and say you rob a store, right? And you had a gun, but they caught you before you could pull the gun, right? So you actually tried to rob the guy, and he hit you up the side of the head with a baseball bat before you could pull the gun, right? So that goes in. First offense, he can't pay the bail, right? And he's potentially a dangerous society. They're proposing just let that person out. So now he's already done the robbery, and now he understands, hey, the last time I tried that, and that guy hit me upside the head with a bat, so I better have that gun ready and in his face this time, so he can't pull that. So now you've let somebody, who knows what's going on? But this is a point about just because some left-wing group with no evidence at all has this theory, we hope that it'll work, right? They shouldn't be able to get their way. And they certainly shouldn't be able to do it through a Supreme Court that doesn't even have the ability if it wanted to, right? Supreme courts, actually even local courts don't have this type of ability because they don't have the resources, but at least they take evidence. Appellate courts, the record is closed. That's it. There's no more taking in any new data, right? You just make legal arguments. So the Supreme Court has no idea what's going on here. And they're making a legislative decision about this without any evidence at all. All right. Despite some right-wing politicians and activists having tried to convey a rabid misinformation campaigns, the Pretrial Fairness Act is not intended to allow residents of violent crime or loose on the streets like a horde of zombies in an apocalyptic disaster film. Okay. Anyway, the last point I want to make here is they've basically changed the law radically here. Radically. We have no idea what's going to go on, and they can't even address the arguments that have been made, is that it will be a problem of public safety. Here's what passes for an argument on the left these days. Despite some right-wing politician and activists have tried to convey rapid misinformation campaigns. I remember when you couldn't do that. You'd have to actually say what it was. Now you can just label it. It's conspiracy theory, misinformation, disinformation campaign, and then everything I said, the well is poisoned, right? Is not intended to allow thousands of violent men and women loose on the street. Well, I don't care what it's intended to do. Will it do that, in fact? Like a horde of zombies in an apocalyptic disaster film. See, again, this kind of hyperbolic rhetoric is what we're becoming. And it's all because of what we went back with the Democrats, because people can't have a dispassionate. I'd be fine if they would at least say, here's my point, state it, and say, I don't agree that's going to happen, and move on. But they don't. Anyway, folks, I'm over an hour. I got to figure a way to make this more brief. Anyway, you're now all caught up to date with the news of the day. You're actually more informed than most people that follow the news, because this kind of thing isn't getting a lot of play, and some of the other stories I talked about haven't either. Anyway, so if you enjoyed the live stream /podcast, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.